And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. I'm David Burnett in Indianapolis, Indiana, the sports capital of the country and the globe. Anyway, I'm joined by my fellas, Chuck Snowden. How you doing, Chuck?
Hey, David, I'm doing great. You know how I feel about Wednesday. Wednesday, 7 o'clock, I get to hang out with you guys and chop up some sports. So I can't wait. So let's do it.
Larry Abels, how are you?
Everything's good, and I'm ready to rock and roll too.
We are missing one of our comrades, Earl Go-Go Rush. Hopefully he'll join us shortly. We certainly hope so. He is a key member of our team. First off tonight, we're going to talk about the WNBA Finals. Great series of games, 5 games, all of them close. New York Liberty winning their first WNBA championship against the Minnesota Lynx, who had won 4 previous WNBA titles. Let me start with you, Larry. Your thoughts about that series, because I thought it was fascinating.
Oh, it was a great series. You had the 2 top teams playing. The Lynx were the only team that had beaten the Liberty more than once this year and pretty much split the season series. And this was as close as you can. I mean, 5 games, game 5 in overtime. Fantastic series.
Chuck, you've been watching a lot of the WNBA. This has been one of a hallmark year for the league. This series, though, really topped it off.
Yeah, I wish I could invest in this league. I'm really bullish on the WNBA. And I did watch that finals. It was a great finals, as Larry mentioned. It did go to overtime. Now, I'm going to get a little controversial here.
Bring it on.
I thought it was a horrible call. At the end of the game, Breonna Stewart, some even say she traveled, but when she took her shot in that lane, I do not think she was fouled at all. And then they won in overtime. So I still loved it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and even in the men's game, there are calls I've looked on, overtime that happens that I've debated. But I thought that was a really bad call.
But doesn't that actually build the clicks, the attachment to the league? Controversy sells.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Nobody needs that. They should have called the game correctly. Chuck and I were online together at the same time, and I said, Chuck, I think the refs bailed Stewart out. He came back, agreed, and it was an otherwise great final. And it's too bad that potentially impacted the end of this game.
Well, let's talk about. Go ahead, Chuck.
I really do. Look, and again, I know I sound like a conspiracy person. Look, the commissioner of the league, right? The commissioner of the league was wearing a dress that night that was the New York skyline with the Empire State Building and the Statue of Liberty on it. I just thought that was an odd outfit to have in a game, to wear to a game like this in New York. I just didn't like the call. I didn't like it. And by the way, the foul differential was what? I think they called 24 fouls, free throws that the Liberty had. And the Lynx only had 8.
That was the other thing.
Anyway,
Collier didn't even get
to the great year. I love the WNBA.
Yeah, Collier didn't even get to the free throw line, and questionable. I mean, first it was kind of like, are they letting them play? Then it might have been they're letting them play down one end of the court. The real thing about the play that Chuck is talking about, he and I were lying to each other. First, at real time, we thought it wasn't a foul. Then they had the instant replay, and even the commentators couldn't see a foul.
And I've seen photos. I've seen photos since, and from all the different angles. I just don't see the foul.
Let's talk about what the WNBA can do to improve officiating. This has been a great year in terms of viewership. All 5 games were sold out in their home arenas. 19,000 every game in Minnesota, each game in Minnesota, 18,000 in Brooklyn. That's impressive. 2.7 million viewers for the final game, close to that for game 4. The WNBA has never seen anything like that. So are we close to saying it isn't just Caitlin Clark? And again, I'm a huge Caitlin Clark fan. I'm in Caitlin, Indiana. But it's not all Caitlin Clark, and nor should it be. Chuck.
I think they're making progress. I think this year was extraordinary. If she was the one that lit the match to really get this going, although Larry will say it has started before she got there, I just think the trajectory of that league is going in the right direction. As I say, if it was a business, I would love to invest in it. I found it entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot. And I, too, and David, you know this, loved me some Caitlin Clark. So, but these other ladies can play, too. It's just a beautiful thing to watch, the cutting, the moving. You know, the men are so good athletically, sometimes you forget to see how cool basketball is with all the right things that we learned coming up.
Very valid point.
And the ladies,
very valid point.
Yeah, the ladies.
Larry, your thoughts on what you saw in terms of the growth of the WNBA? I know you watched the WNBA and have watched it consistently over the years. What was different about this year in your eyes?
Well, I think Caitlin Clark brought a lot more attention to the league, and you know that's always good. With respect to the finals, like I was telling you before the show, it didn't hurt that New York was involved, and when they're involved in games, a lot of times they set records. A lot of the records of certain games, one of the teams played is New York. Great. I think they're going in the right direction, and more people are watching.
What will the WNBA have to do? And we'll conclude with this question. What will the WNBA have to do to continue the momentum that they saw this year to go use the stepping stone of Caitlin Clark's attraction and what was built in terms of the final series? What do they have to do? What would you suggest, Larry?
I'm not even really sure how to answer that. I think in our society, women are not given the same, props as men are. I think what happened this year where more people actually watch their game, I think if that continues, they continue to get a better TV contract, I think more people will watch. Chuck, your thoughts?
Larry's on to something. They can't have a work stoppage. Now, I know the contract has been, they're talking about that in the news. I just hope that doesn't happen. But remember that night, the game 5, the championship game, it was the same night as the football and the baseball. Yeah. And they still got their audience, and we still watched. And it was a Sunday night, and that's another night, for TV, if you will. So I don't think much has to be done. Just let's keep doing what we're doing. I know they're going to add a team at Golden State.
Right.
So there's some expansion happening. I just think it's in a good place, David. I really think it's in a good place.
I did say we'd have one last question, but I got one more. What should these women be paid? Because the lowest amount of money that a woman can be paid in the WNBA is $65,000. An NBA player, the average NBA player might make that in a quarter. Chuck.
So there's just some financial math that has to be done. I don't know the easy answer to that. I do think they should get more. I just don't know how much more, David, just based on there's a lot happening. New contract for the television, the arenas are filling up, there's more sponsors and so forth. I hope they figure it out that everybody can walk away happy with this whole situation.
Larry, what's a number that you would be comfortable with seeing these young ladies getting paid? on average.
Before we go further, please check and see if anybody's in our chat, because I know some people said they were going to holler at us tonight. For the market will have to determine that. The market will have to determine that. Chuck, you said you hope it's not a strike. That might be what they need to do, and it's not to either side's advantage for a strike to occur. So, what's up, Anderson? So, I'm hoping they can sit down and come up with some proportion of the TV contract, so they're getting a new TV contract, and I think that'll be, it's hard to say a number without having those figures all at hand.
Mm-hmm. I just personally feel like at the least, the lowest paid female player, the 12th woman on the team, should get at least $200,000 minimum, and the top player in the league should be making over $1 million.
As a former labor relations person, I still have to say we can't pay them if we're not bringing the money in.
Well, they're bringing the money in now, and the money is television money and sponsor money. The money is there. So
what other sports and like the NBA does, a certain proportion of the money that comes in, we just don't know what it is. Still, a lot of people are not watching regular season games, but it depends on what the TVs will pay them. They should get a portion of the gross revenue.
And there's only 40 games, I think, right? There's only like 40 games.
40 games.
And look, if they all should get some additional monies, and I agree they should, what should Caitlin get, right? Because look how much money she's generating. So it's just a lot of trickiness they got to figure out, and I hope they will. I hope there's some smart people, and it all gets and they keep this momentum going. And I'm looking forward to the college basketball season, and it'll continue to feed into the WNBA.
Let's hope so. All right, let's transition into the NFL. A lot of games to talk about, but we got just a couple of games to focus on. And let's talk first about the only undefeated team left in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, and their game against the San Francisco 49ers. Larry, your thoughts about Kansas City? They're winning games. They're not necessarily winning impressively, but they're winning. They're undefeated. What do you see from them at this point, and how do you break down what happened with San Francisco? Do they just have San Francisco's number now?
Well, San Francisco had a lot of people out. McCaffrey, Debo, as well as Ayuk got hurt during the game. I thought, I was hoping for a more competitive game there, but they just seemed like they were ready. San Francisco might be in serious trouble. With respect to the Chiefs, they seem to do enough to win. They have a great defense, and I think they just signed DeAndre Hopkins today, so that might help out their offense a little bit.
Chuck.
Well, first of all, before we go any further, hey, Greg, hey, Kung Fu, Ricky. So I appreciate all you guys joining in and the comments and so forth.
Absolutely.
In terms of the games, that games specifically, what jumped out at me in that game? Both those quarterbacks, Purdy and Mahomes, they didn't throw a touchdown pass. And in fact, one had 3 interceptions and the other had 2 interceptions. And their ratings for the two of them were horrible.
Let's advance that point. Patrick Mahomes, even on an undefeated team, has only 8 touchdown passes, and he has 8 interceptions.
8 or 7 or 8 turnovers, interceptions.
Are we seeing a decline in Patrick Mahomes, or is it just the residual effect of not having the kind of talent catching balls as he's had before?
His receivers are down. They're all hurt. He hasn't gotten any continuity going. Even the magic between him and Kelsey, because other teams can take Kelsey out the game now because the receivers haven't been healthy. But he's still 6-0, There's still some magic in that dude. But you're right. His numbers, his actual numbers, they are really down this year.
If his name was Joe Smith, we would be on his ass.
Right. Look, I think he leads the National Football League in interceptions.
Am I being too hard on Patrick Mahomes, Larry?
I think he's definitely having an off year. And the key to that team, we might say he's 6-0. It's their defense that's 6-0. Their defense wins game, not that different than Pittsburgh. He makes plays when they need to make a play. He's not making them all game long, but when they have to make a play, he seems to make a play. I think Kelsey has dropped off. That's what I think has dropped off. He doesn't seem like he can get open. But Hopkins may answer some of those questions for them.
Yeah. But don't let's not leave this game talking about Purdy. You know, we thought Purdy was on a, I know this is ridiculous to say, but kind of on a Joe Montana trajectory. And he is
now,
really,
are we being too hard on Purdy because he too is losing all of his weapons?
yeah, he's struggling. He did not look good, and has not looked good. That team's 3-4. Like Larry said, there's a threat for them not to even make the playoffs.
What I like about Kansas City, though, is that despite Patrick Mahomes' struggles, despite the fact that their offense is lacking this year, they're still finding ways to win. And when the push comes to shove in the fourth quarter, somehow they get it done.
He ran two of them in this weekend himself. He ran one of them. He ran the safety over, and that was a pretty interesting looking play.
All right, the other team,
and of course, some of the conspiracy theorists are saying, does Kansas City get more calls than everybody else?
it always seems that way when the team is just running through other teams every year. They might be getting all the calls, but is it a conspiracy? Nah. But it's fun to talk about it.
Of course.
Fun to talk about it. All right, next game to talk about. Jets and Aaron Rodgers versus the Steelers and Russell Wilson. How do we look at that game? You know, personally, I'm tired of Aaron Rodgers. Are you guys tired of Aaron Rodgers? Larry?
I have nothing against Aaron Rodgers or anything like that. I think that certainly back in New York, there's a lot of hype and a lot of attention, and with his past, rightfully so. But I've heard some people talk about them being a Super Bowl team. I don't see it, and I think Pittsburgh really showed last week that they're not close.
How did we look at? Well, let me go to you, Chuck.
I agree. I agree with what Larry said. And look, they even added his receiver, Devontae Adams, who didn't make a difference in that game. And that defense is not as good. It appears to me that their defense is not as good as we thought coming into this season as well. So in they have an edge rusher who's coming off of a contract holdout. He's joining them this week. So I don't know. Maybe they still have time to salvage it because that division that they're in is weak.
That's why they have time.
They have time to salvage it.
Yeah.
So
They might be weak, but the division has Buffalo in it.
Yeah.
So if they could beat Buffalo one time and sweep the rest of the division, their record will look a lot better.
Well, do we overpraise the Jets because they're the Jets, considering they've won nothing in 50 years?
Right.
In more than 50 years. Do we overpraise them, Larry? You mentioned New York. Is it because it's New York? Is it still the love affair, the fantasy we have about Joe Willie Namath?
I mean, I think most football fans today don't even know about Joe Willie Namath. I think Aaron Rodgers has a little, he's got a reputation, but he's getting up there in age. But he's got a resume, and I think they were optimistic, as Chuck was saying, about their defense. They got his receivers. They had Lazard already. Now they got the other receiver, decent running back, but for some reason they just don't seem that good.
They really don't.
Chuck, your thoughts?
I agree with everything that Larry said. Look, I agree. There's a guy on TV, Greeny. Greeny loves the Jets. I'm wondering if sometimes the announcers, because that's their third team, do they get more preferential attention? Because you look at Detroit or Minnesota, they don't get nearly, shout outs as the Jets, and yet they're having phenomenal years. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a media thing. I don't know if it's a New York thing.
I think it's all of those things. I think you're right about all of it.
The other
Before
thing,
we
the other team
go
in
ahead.
New York's not looking too sweet either. So they've got the front page. They're the hope in New York right now.
But they've won some Super Bowls.
They have.
They've won Super Bowls since
That
the
doesn't matter.
Jets have.
That doesn't matter for this year's team.
Enough about the Giants. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. One thing I saw, even though the first half was kind of shaky for Russell Wilson, he got the long ball into the game plan, and it mattered in the second half. I called Russell Wilson over with a couple of weeks ago. I may have to change my opinion. I've been a Russell Wilson guy since he came out of Wisconsin, but the reality is he hasn't played well, but he played relatively well. And it's not just Russell Wilson. The Steelers are winning games, and they scored 37 points. Are we overlooking the Steelers, Chuck?
No, we're not overlooking them. As you know, we've talked about this in the production meeting, Tomlin is one of the best that's ever done it. To show you how bold and all in he's in, they were leading the division. They were 4-2, and they made a quarterback change. What? And I didn't necessarily agree with it, and I'm still not sure I do, because Russell did not look good in the first half, but he looked really good in the second half, and he showed you that touch. He got George Pickens into the game. Pickens had one of the best games he's had since he's been with the Steelers. If he can sustain it, and there's still some magic left inside him, they might be on to something, David.
Well, one thing we do know, Larry, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers will have a winning record. Larry, your thoughts on Pittsburgh?
I think the coach made the right move. I think most likely, first of all, I have the utmost respect for his coaching ability.
Yeah.
What happened was he was named the starter in training camp.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Fields did anything to make me say I can't put Russell Wilson back in the game. They were 4-2, but their defense held them in a lot of games. So in the locker room or in the practice field, everybody sees who the best quarterback is. If your number one quarterback goes down and he comes back and he's going to get a chance to play. He hasn't played a regular season game since December of last year. So that might be why we sort of forgot about him. He probably didn't look that well before that. But I think it's a great organization. It's from top to bottom. The coaching staff is good, and I think he made the right move. And I think everybody in that team knew that he was the best quarterback they had on the squad. The good news about it is Fields has got to play, and the team will have confidence in him in case they need to go back to him for whatever reason.
Before we move on from that game, Justin Fields, he struggled in Chicago. They basically let him go for a song. He had a great college career. What does he need to do to reinvigorate his career? He's got some playing time in Pittsburgh. It wasn't bad. He didn't stink up the joint, but he didn't really explode. Chuck, your thoughts?
So the difference between him and the guy we have in Washington, Jaden, some of these other really good quarterbacks, they have that touch pass. How about this? I know I make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but Justin throws that ball straight. It doesn't seem to have that trajectory touch pass or when to back off and throwing it really hard. And quite frankly, he's not that accurate. If a guy's open, you got to hit him, Justin. In spite of that, though, he has those legs. So when they're off schedule, he can take off and pick up a first down for you. I think that's a piece that Pittsburgh could miss with substituting Russ for Justin. So we'll see how that all shakes out.
Larry, to conclude this thought on Pittsburgh and Justin Fields, you're the head coach instead of Mike Tomlin. What do you do to pump this guy up to keep him involved and interested in playing? Because he seemed down when he was benched, basically. We want to call it bench.
That's his body language. That's just his natural body.
Well,
what would you do, Larry?
Tell him to be ready. You got to be ready. Everybody's one play away. I'm playing the best guy. Right now I can't sit Russell Wilson now, but he needs to be ready for whatever reason. when I need to call him, I expect him to be there. I think he really helped his career now. I mean, I really think this is probably a good situation because the coach used him the best way I've seen him used in the pros. But I think he'll be okay. I think he's one of those type of guys that will develop over the years, and I think he'll be in the league for a while.
Well, keep in mind, everybody should keep in mind, both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are on one-year deals with Pittsburgh. So one of those guys is going to survive. We don't know whom, but it looks like Pittsburgh's in a good situation. And once again, Mike Tomlin, who doesn't, he's a great coach who I still think doesn't get enough credit for the kind of coaching that he does, never having a losing season. All right. The other game that we want to look at, two teams from probably the strongest division in the NFL.
Probably.
I think it's possible all four teams in the NFC North can make the playoffs. We had the Lions and the Vikings. The Lions who look like they're ready to play the Super Bowl, and the Vikings, despite everything, are right there with them. Larry, what do you see when you see the Lions and Vikings and the kind of game that they played? And what do you think of the Lions in particular?
The Lions are certainly one of the best teams in the NFC, if not the best team. And, I have to give the Vikings credit. That was a very good game Sunday. Could have gone either way. Two good teams. I expect them both to win the majority of their games going forward. And I expect both of them to be in the playoffs, and one of them may get to the Super Bowl.
Chuck.
Just like Larry said, statistically, that game was almost dead even. And as we talked about Mahomes and Purdy in that San Francisco-Kansas City game, the two quarterbacks in this game, Darnold and Goff, they played their butts off. They both had over, 120, 130 quarterback rating, big touchdown passes, and the final score was 31-29. So I guess what I'm saying is those are two really good ball clubs. I think Detroit could get there. Of course, losing Hutchinson hurts them, but they still had 4 sacks in that game. Both those teams got to keep an eye on, and that whole conference has to be kept an eye on because Green Bay and Chicago are good too.
Is it possible that Green Bay could jump over both of them?
Absolutely. They're right there with them.
Yeah, they're 5-2.
All three of them are very good. They can finish 1, 2, and 3 in any order there.
What about the Bears? Are they to be forgotten, or are they?
They're good too.
They don't seem quite as seasoned as the other three, which saying the other two. When I say seasoned, I shouldn't. The Vikings and the Packers are not necessarily that season, but for some reason I have a different feel about them.
And for good reason.
The Bears have a rookie quarterback. He's good, but he's still a rookie quarterback. Hey,
right.
Anderson. And I'm gonna tell you about Anderson real quick. Anderson is
sure.
We'll talk about it when we get to the college football. He's as big a Penn State fan as there is in the DMV. So when we get to the college football piece, I have to mention Penn State, I guess.
I had to post that because I'm right all the time. Anyway. All right.
So that you will post them.
All right, real quickly, I don't want to necessarily talk about the game that they played, but we're all Washington connected, even though I'm a Hoosier at heart. I lived in Washington for 25 years. The Washington Commanders look like they matter. How do you guys feel about that? I'm happy as hell. I was never a big Redskin / football team / Commanders fan, but I'm really happy for that team. I'm really happy for that team. Chuck.
I like him a lot too. I'm with you, David. Look, we love Jaden Daniels. I think he has an incredible future with us. But they're so well coached that Mariota came in the other day and they kept it moving. I mean, they still look good. And I said this in the production meeting, I still don't think they have a lot of great players yet. So there's room to improve the club as time goes on. but I really like them. I like the future. I like the organization, top to bottom. They did Darryl Green right this weekend, which I thought was really classy. And I think we got something to be proud of now.
Larry, your niece has some nice things to say about the Commanders.
I see. Hey, Lauren, how you doing? Coach, I'm gonna echo what Chuck said. The thing that impresses me is that they're a well-coached team. The other thing that I really like about them, they never talk that rebuilding crap because I don't want to hear that. I'm, as a former ticket holder, when I went to the games, I had no patience for rebuilding. They came out well coached and they make football decisions. None of the fluff that the previous regime did, winning the offseason every year. They look like a real finally run organization now from top to bottom.
How much does it matter that Dan Snyder, the devil that he was, is no longer part of that team? I'm sorry that he got so much money to leave, but he's gone. And
they cut the cancer out, didn't they? They cut the cancer out.
They sure did.
I'll tell you another thing about them. They don't mess around, right? Jamin Davis was a first-round draft pick of Washington. I don't know what, Larry, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 4, but it wasn't that long ago. Number 1 draft pick. They released them this week. They released them. Didn't work out for them. He didn't fit into their system. They let him go.
Bye.
Well, they also got rid of Dotson, and
they got rid of another first-round pick.
And I thought Forbes he got an interception last week. I forgot he was on the team.
He's another first-round pick.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the last 3 first-round picks. But with respect to Snyder, was based on going back to my last comment. They make football decisions now. It's not who the owner likes and all of that, whose kid went to high school with him and all this kind of stuff. They make football decisions. They didn't even have a general manager. They had general managers who just solely worried about the cap, a capologist, no talent evaluators. They run it like a professional sports organization should be run, or like a real business that was accountable to his clients is run.
Well, I'm really hoping that they can really do well.
I hope Jaden is healthy this weekend. I don't want to rush him back, but it's an interesting weekend because Caleb Williams comes to town, the number 1 pick, plays against Jaden, the number 2 pick.
And back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners.
Yeah, and he's got the Washington, D.C. ties. Caleb does. Went to Gonzaga. So I haven't heard. Have you heard anything that is Jaden's ribs?
He didn't practice today. But,
that's not a good sign not to practice by Wednesday.
Well, Friday's the day we really look at. So part of it, I was wondering whether they were trying to be coy about who the Bears could play with. Is the injury? Is the difference between being injured and hurt?
Right.
They haven't said what his injury is, so it's making me. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here. I'm thinking he might just be hurt. If he's hurt, he can play. He needs to play.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the top 5 NFL teams at this point. Larry, your top 5 NFL teams right now.
Gosh, I'm gonna say Kansas City. I'll say Detroit. Probably Green Bay. I got to get the Commanders in there. That's 4. And I need one more. Oh, did I say Minnesota?
You didn't say Baltimore.
Oh, back up. Let me start my list again. Baltimore, Kansas City. Even though Kansas City beat Baltimore, so I guess I got to put Kansas City number 1. I knew it was somebody in the AFC that I would think about. So Kansas City, Baltimore, Detroit, Minnesota, and Washington.
Okay, that sounds fair. Chuck.
I have it written down, and that's exactly how I have it. Baltimore, Kansas City, Lions, Vikings, and I too included the Commanders.
Well, let's hope the Commanders might one day be number 1 on everybody's list, because I'd be really happy about that. All right. We'll get back to football in a second, but the NBA kicked off or tipped off last night. And we had a new thing happen. Bronny and LeBron on the court at the same time. Any thoughts about that? Chuck, you are a big LeBron guy. What do you think about his son finally playing with dad?
Oh no, David, I don't have anything to say about this. No, that's not true. No, that's not true at all. Look, man, we are all fathers on this call, right? We're all
Yes,
fathers,
sir.
right? And I admire him because I think LeBron likes being a dad as much, if not more than being a basketball player. And it's reflected. And there is something that came over me when the two of them checked in at that scoring table. I felt good about it. Is he as good as, is he ready yet? No, he's not. Will he ever be? Will he ever be more than average? I don't know. But I'll tell you something. I just thought it was pretty cool. I really did. I wish he had hit that three when they kicked it to him wide open, but that's okay. I just admire him being a father, a good father.
Larry, your thoughts on LeBron and Bronny?
You know, I care nothing about hype and stuff like that. The old man was pretty good. I'm not sure why the son was out there. I read an article in one of the LA, maybe the Times or maybe another publication, where they had another guy that got cut. And a lot of people in Los Angeles were upset because they thought he deserved that final spot. And, you know, when you look at it, the 15th guy on the team, you know, it's not going to make that much of a difference. But then I looked at it again. One's father's a billionaire. The other father probably is not making that much money. Maybe we should just go with the best player and let it play out the way it is.
Life isn't fair, Larry.
Are the Lakers a team to be reckoned with? They looked pretty damn good last night. Chuck Snowden, our Los Angeles Lakers correspondent, what do you think?
Your guy, Mr. The center, Davis, he doesn't get hurt like he used to, huh, David? And he looks pretty good.
He played 75 games last year. That was impressive. He played like a monster last night.
He did. He did. And he played well, you know, in the Olympics as well. So do they have the pieces? We'll see. It's tough out that West. That West is tough. And I also think that Minnesota, you know, it's going to take Minnesota a while to integrate Julius Randle. And there's another new piece on that team. Julius Randle and maybe it's Julius Randle. So I don't think that, I think it's going to be better later. But I think the Lakers they'll be okay. They'll be fine.
Larry, are you as excited about what you saw with Anthony Davis as I was? And you know how I feel about Anthony Davis. He's brittle. He has been brittle, but he's at his best. He should be one of the top players in the league, and often is at his best. What are your thoughts about what you saw with Anthony Davis?
Well, you know, one game, I like Anthony Davis, but I mean, yeah, I don't put too much stock in one game. Long as LeBron is there and he's on top of his game and Anthony's healthy, the Lakers will be a formidable team. I'm not sure they can get all the way to the finals, as Chuck said. That West is kind of tough, but I think they'll be a competitive team. I expect them to maybe make the playoffs without being in the play-in this year.
All right, before I forget, the NBA champions, the Boston Celtics, destroyed the New York Knicks. Are the Celtics the team to beat this year, Larry?
Yes. Not because they destroyed the Knicks, but yes, they have their team back. Their core players are in their prime. And when I say that, they're like 26, 27, 28, and they're on top of their game. I see no reason, if they stay healthy, why they can't repeat. Or at least get to the finals. I expect them to get to the finals.
Chuck, the
and
Boston
they played
Celtics.
with a chip on their even though they won the title last year, they played with a chip on their shoulder. They played pissed off, David. Like maybe they weren't happy at the way they were treated in the Olympics. And I'm talking about Tatum and Brown. And I think they were sending a message to the world that, hey, let's do this. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes throughout the year. But I mean, between the two teams, and this is another thing about NBA right now, 95 or 93 three-pointers were shot between the two teams.
Didn't Boston set an all-time NBA record, 29 three-pointers in a game? I think that's
yes.
They were trying to break the record, but
they missed like their last 13 shots. 3 points.
Right. and still shot 47% from the three. But at one point, they were over 50%, obviously, and they missed the last 13. Can they shoot like that every night? I don't know. But my God, last night it was amazing.
I think they got to be
By the way,
considered the favorite.
The Knicks shot 55% from the field and got killed.
They faced a tornado last night.
Yes,
they faced a tornado. I'd have to say Boston is a favorite, but I tell you what, Midwestern correspondent that I am, don't overlook my Pacers.
Well, of course.
Don't overlook my Pacers. Please don't.
We knew you were going
They're not going to beat Boston.
I didn't say that. They got swept by Boston.
So what
I'm just saying. Don't overlook the Pacers. They won 47 games last season. I figure they're going to win 51 or 52 games this season.
Oh, they're a decent team. But when we were talking about will Boston repeat, that's what made me say.
Right now, I'm saying Boston's going to repeat too.
Okay, yeah.
Zagauskas didn't even play last night, and they still did their thing.
Well, he's been hurt his whole career.
The West has some good teams though, and I wouldn't overlook Oklahoma City to get there this year.
No one.
All right, let's talk about it. Soon we mentioned injuries real quickly. Joel Embiid tonight. Philadelphia has their opening game, and he's on the bench, hurt. Paul George just signed big mega contract with the 76ers, on the bench, hurt. Are the 76ers, are they just wishful thinking? And Joel Embiid has lost weight. He's in shape finally for the first time in his career, but he's not playing. And he's indicated that he's not going to play back-to-backs. He's making $66 million a year or $63 million a year. I got a problem with that. Chuck, I know how you feel about money.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, it's October, right? This thing don't get settled till May and June, meaning it's almost too early to get too riled up over this stuff. And every team's got to manage their people the way they want to get managed. It doesn't always make sense to me because, people like Jordan and LeBron and those people, they played all the time, Bird, Magic. But the athletes of today, it's a little different.
Larry, does it bother you that Joel Embiid has made an effort to get himself in shape, but is not playing right away?
If I was Chuck touched on it, today's players are different. He said he's not going to play back-to-backs. I think Philly has 15 back-to-back schedules, so I think he's going to play if they have one of these TV deals where the league is showing their game. He needs to be healthy at the end of the year. It bothers me a little bit if I'm buying tickets to games and they're not there. That would infuriate me.
All right. Speaking of players who are hurt all the time, Kawhi Leonard. I'm sick of him, to be honest with you. I'm sick to death of him. He's hurt all the time. He gets hurt. I mean, he knew the season was coming. He didn't, he dropped out of the Olympics to apparently get better. And the start of the season, he's not ready. Larry, are you as disgusted with Kawhi Leonard as I am?
I don't know how disgusted you are, but here's the thing. I've come to the conclusion maybe about 4 or 5 years ago that he's just injury prone and he's never going to be healthy. I mean, he's never given us any indication that he can play a full season. So he was a great player one particular year when they won a championship up in Toronto. Was that Toronto where he was?
Yes.
Yeah. But I have no confidence in him ever playing. So I'm not as disgusted because I have no high hopes for him.
Chuck, are you disgusted like I am?
I'm not disgusted. I think his body is failing him. What can you do if your body fails you? Larry Bird, he went through it too, right? Larry Bird, his back went out on him, and so his career ended early.
But he was playing when his back was hurt.
Well,
he was playing.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, if his body can't do it, his body can't do it. And I think that's where we are. I just don't think his body is responding. He's trying.
He's proved it. I mean, it's been like out of the last 10 years, he hasn't hardly played.
No, he hasn't.
But he won a title in San Antonio. Some people said during that series, he was checking LeBron when LeBron was with Miami. he looked really good. People were saying he was even better than LeBron. Of course,
That was probably the last time he was healthy too.
And in
Yeah,
Toronto,
probably
he bought Toronto a title.
But he was hurt often in Toronto that
Yeah,
one
he made
year.
it through the playoffs that year.
Right.
He did. He did. Real quickly, are we in a consensus that the Boston Celtics will repeat or can repeat? I think we are.
I think they can get to the finals. I'm not going to say that they'll repeat.
Chuck.
I say here in October, right now, based on tonight's conversation, yeah, it looks like they're going to repeat. But I want to, I want to be able to readdress that at some point. But right now, they look like the best in the East.
All right. Enough on the NBA. The NBA has started this week. Last night, opening up. Got a chance to see Charles Barkley, Shaq, Kenny, and
Like them.
Oh my goodness. What a broadcast. Anyway, let's talk about somebody's favorite team in college. My mom and my sister's favorite team, the Indiana Hoosiers, undefeated, 7-0. ESPN is going to have their game day there. Is it a joke for us to say Indiana can win more games and maybe even make the college football playoffs? Chuck, you're an alum.
I don't think it's a joke at all. I think they crushed Nebraska, and Nebraska was 5-1. They beat Colorado convincingly. They lost to Illinois in overtime. Illinois beat Michigan this past weekend. Indiana is they're legit. They're the real deal. It's unfortunate that the quarterback hurt his thumb and will be missing a game or two. But even with the backup quarterback, who, by the way, is Trace Jackson Davis's brother.
Little brother, yeah.
Little brother. And they kept it moving. 56 points against that team. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Thank you, Anderson.
Anderson's is with the program. Larry, your thoughts about Indiana University football?
I'm not sure how many teams on their schedule could necessarily beat them. What if they get? I think it's a good chance that they'll have no more than 2 losses and maybe only 1. If they get through with only 1 loss, they should make the playoffs.
Wouldn't that be something?
That would be
the
great.
last time Indiana University was worth a damn and really was ranked, I was 11 freaking years old. That just tells you how old I am now. We're all the same age.
Right.
I look for them to beat Michigan. They probably have Penn State and Ohio State.
No, they don't have Penn State this year. So
they don't have Penn State? Okay, so Ohio State's going to be a big game.
They play Washington. They play Washington.
That's right. That's the other team.
They go to Michigan State next week. Then they play Michigan back in Bloomington. And then they go to Columbus.
Yeah, I think Washington and Ohio State are going to be the 2 teams. If they can win one of those games, I don't see them losing more than 1 game.
And then they finish up with Purdue.
They might not make it if they have a 2-loss season. They may, because they don't have the pedigree that some of the other favorite schools have, like some of those SEC schools. But it's hard to keep them out of the tournament if they only lose 1 game.
They're on a magic carpet ride. So the thing now, again, this is probably too inside of baseball. I hate to steal your show a little bit here, David, is on game day, they have a picker, so the question, a celebrity picker. So the talk around town is who's going to be the celebrity picker from Indiana. And names like Johnny Cougar Mellencamp, who did Jack and Diane, that song. And then Isaiah Thomas or Jane Pauley or Joe Buck. Are some of the names that
who I would like to see them if they're still alive, the Van Arsdale twins.
There you go.
Tom and Dick Van Arsdale from Indianapolis, Indiana, who were co-Mr. Basketball back in the early 60s, went on to Indiana University and starred there and had parallel careers in the NBA, 13, 14 seasons each. In the NBA, they would be great to do that. But Lee Corso,
he's going to be on the panel.
He'll be on the panel. He'll put on some head. What's a Hoosier?
I know. Who knows? I still don't know, and I've been involved with them for 100 years.
And I've been on that campus a number of times. I don't know what a Hoosier is, but I am a Hoosier. All right.
Pretty cool stuff.
Top 5 college football teams, Larry.
Gosh, I'm going to say Georgia now. Probably Ohio State, probably Oregon. And all I have is those 3.
Okay. Chuck.
Oregon, Georgia, Anderson. I put Penn State in the top 5. Penn State, Ohio State, Texas, even though I still think Texas is soft. So Oregon, Georgia, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas. Top 5. Hey, Kung Fu.
Kung Fu. Well, they do need to win 4 more games to get into the playoffs because they're Indiana. You got to have a pedigree, and their pedigree is a losing team. By the way, in all fairness, my IU love is shaky. They're the all-time losingest football team in major college football. And that's a damn shame.
Been ugly.
It's ugly. All right. The World Frickin' Series swings off on Friday. The 2 most popular, the two wealthiest franchises, the Dodgers and the Yankees. Perfect. And Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge, the 2 best players in baseball, facing off against each other. Larry, how do you see the World Series starting on Friday?
Oh, it's I'm looking forward to it. I'm expecting a good contest. Both teams have decent pitching, and we can't stop with Ohtani and Judge. We got Soto and
Mookie,
and Betts and Freddie Freeman and Stanton. Both teams have lineups from top to bottom that can do it. Good pitching. It should be a great series.
Chuck, your thoughts?
I agree with everything Larry said. I think this is what is the 11th or 12th time the Dodgers.
12th time they faced each other in the World Series.
It's been a long time since they did.
I know. But and again, they're probably the 2 biggest payrolls too. So it should be fun. The bats warmed up. Soto and Ohtani and Judge and Stanton, they all had hit bombs in the previous playoff games. To me, the Yankees have this guy Cole. If Cole can be an ace in this World Series, I think that gives them an advantage.
I think the X factor for me is Giancarlo Stanton. He's always hurt in the regular season, but he has been hitting the hell out of the ball in the playoffs. He is finally living up. I mean, and he's a big dude. He's almost as big as Judge. I don't know why he gets hurt all the time, but he's delivering now, finally. So I'm looking forward to it. I might even watch 1 or 2 games. Friday night. All right, gentlemen, any closing comments as we conclude our program for the evening?
None from me.
I have one.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
going to try to stumble through it because I'm going to stumble through it.
No problem. Stumble on.
Okay. So if I asked you guys if the season ended today, who would be the NFL MVP? And I think I'll ask you guys, who would you say would be the NFL MVP if the season ended today? I'll start us off. I would probably guess it would be Lamar Jackson.
Right. I was going to say right now, and the guy that doesn't get any credit that's playing very well is Sam Darnold up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But I think Lamar Jackson probably would get it.
Lamar Jackson is playing the best football of his career. And one thing to keep in mind, remember his rookie year. It was touch and go on some games. And in the playoffs, his first playoff game, he was horrible.
Right.
He was horrible. But he
rebounded. I'm setting you up. I would say that
set me up.
But I think, and no one talks about this, I think if the season ended today, it would be, and you were close, Larry, I think it would be Jared Goff. What Jared Goff has been the last 3 or 4 games, has been unbelievable. His quarterback rating is over 140 for the last three games. The one game he was 18 for 18. The next game he was 18 for 25. The next game which was Sunday, he was 23 of 25. And they won them all. And he's just having this incredible season that no one's talking about. So if you get a chance out there, listeners, check out the season Jared Goff is having this year.
He is. You know who else is having a good year? Y'all are going to laugh. It's Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He might be leading the league in touchdown passes.
He is leading the league in
He stumbled on
touchdown
Monday night. The Ravens beat him up pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
But he got 3 touchdown passes.
Right, he did.
Well, he got.
I think he has
garbage
20
time.
touchdown passes now.
I just don't think people talk about Goff. Goff was a #1 pick in 2006. He was the number one. I didn't realize that.
He's good. And, it would be really nice to see Detroit. That city has transformed itself. It used to be one hellhole of a city.
David, I saw last night Eminem introduced Barack Obama in Detroit, and he spoke to the crowd there. And I just thought it was really cool because Barack recited some of Eminem's song when he opened up his speech. Man, no one can deliver a speech like Barack. Anyway.
Barack Obama. Amen. Amen. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. We will see everyone next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm David Burnett with Chuck Snowden, Larry Abels. This is Real Fellas Talk Sports. Good night.